Welcome to WellPlayed Talkthrough, powered by SteelSeries Alias microphones, but more on that later. I'm Zach Jackson, joining me is James Wood.
Howdy gamers.
And Nathan Hennessy.
G'day, g'day.
This is Talkthrough, where we invite a developer onto the show to talk about and share a slice of their upcoming game with us. And today I'm excited to welcome Craig Ritchie, co-founder of Drop Bear Bytes and game director of Broken Roads, coming to PC and Xbox consoles early 2024.
Cool, thanks guys, good to be here, and excited.
Awesome. Now, can you just explain for those who maybe haven't played Broken Roads before or need a bit of a refresher, just what is the elevator pitch for Broken Roads?
So it's a post-apocalyptic CRPG, very much influenced by the early Fallout games, the Infinity Engine series like Baldur's Gate, Planescape Torment, and then more recently Pillars of Eternity, Disco Elysium. Very much that traditional isometric RPG set in post-apocalyptic Australia, with a unique take on morality, authentic Australian locations, and set about 150 years from now in a ravaged future Western Australia.
Awesome. Yeah, I recall seeing this, I think PAX 2019, you had the little concept booth going there, and I think all of us, were there, and we loved what we saw, and we're super excited that it's not too far away. So amazing job on pulling that together. Well, Nathan, if you want to jump into the game and get us started.
Yeah, excellent. I think we're going to roll with some of the intro to begin with, Zach.
I believe that is the plan. Let's hit play.
Fantastic.
So who are we meeting here first?
So this is Bally Hall. This is the starting location for both the hired gun origin story and the surveyor origin story. Bally Hall is home of a group of scouts who, they're essentially hired guns themselves. They patrol and take care of the area around Brookton, which is where the opening sequences happen. The surveyor is an explorer, map maker, finds new trade routes, investigates new settlements, that kind of thing. They're like everyone in this world, they're handy with a gun, but they're not necessarily fighters at the core of it. So some of the hired guns the scouts will be accompanying your surveyor character to a town called Alderside, which they haven't been able to reach on the radio for some time. And if you were a hired gun character, your origin story would be to go with another two to a place called Kokobi Way Station. So while you start in the exact same scene, they immediately branch off in different ways.
And I can see just in the bottom of the screen there's that little dial, which is your moral compass. Can you just kind of explain, because we've obviously kind of pushed ahead of the character creation, and just kind of talk us through how that works?
Cool. So at the very start of the game, you will be faced with 6 hypothetical, sort of thought experiment moral quandaries or ethical dilemmas that you can handle in different ways based upon the choices presented. During character creation, we don't block you from making any decisions, and the outcome of those will be where your character starts. So the golden arc that you saw on the moral compass is called your worldview, and that encompasses the range of choices available to any character. There's also brightly illuminated sections at the center of each quadrant that's called your moral tendencies. Those are low-level decisions, concepts, responses that anyone can make, because you can obviously conceive of differing views and so on than just what is within your worldview. So that allows us to have, if you look there, you'll see at the bottom of each one, right at the center, there's a brighter yellow, blue, etc., little pie segment.
Yeah.
Any choices that are, fall within the moral quadrants will be somewhere on the compass. 360 degrees around, 0 to 100 from the center to the outside. The more extreme they are, the higher the closer to the outside they will be. And more decisions made in your worldview or your current quadrant will actually narrow the worldview, so that golden arc becomes narrower, but the outer edge extends closer to the outside of the compass. So you're actually becoming narrow-minded. You're able to make more focused decisions in a particular quadrant, at the the expense of a broader range. And likewise, if you start making decisions all over the moral compass, you become broad-minded. You've got more to choose from, but some of the more extreme options, or I'm exceptionally Machiavellian choices, say the 75 to 100 range won't be available to a player like that.
Yeah, nice.
Is that something that can be, so, you don't want to necessarily railroad the player over time into a very specific play style. Let's say that like halfway through my time in the Outback, I decide I want to be a better person. Am I going to be able to reverse that kind of morality?
Up to a point, every decision that you make rotates it as well. So if you make a decision, so where the white dot is now, that actually marks the exact center. That's your worldview, where you are. Every time you make a decision, it'll rotate slightly clockwise or counterclockwise. The further from your worldview, the larger effect it has. So let's say now you've got a low-level utilitarian choice to make, which is the yellow quadrant. It will probably have a, if memory serves correctly, a 9-degree rotation. If you were to make a decision in your within your worldview, it's anything from 0 to 3 degrees, and I think just outside is about 6 degrees. So it's possible. And that also scales. Those aren't absolute. It scales in relation to the distance from the center of your worldview. So yes, you can, but you would have to be making appropriate choices along the way. And it's a lot of small choices that will adjust your worldview, as opposed to, well, I'm going to be a selfless, caring individual now, and suddenly the most violent, harsh person down the line.
Yeah. Which is a really interesting contrast, right? Because I feel like having that compass at the bottom there is a very like gamified way of presenting morality. But the way you're explaining this system actually functions is quite loose and very human, is what it sounds like. It seems like you've struck a really cool balance there.
That's the goal, really, is to try to go, well, people are, multi-dimensional things as well. Let's add a little bit more nuance and complexity and have it rotate based on decisions. I'm now lawful good, and I can suddenly drop to being evil or neutral or something. It's like gradual rotations. And like on the moral compass, if your center of your worldview, that dot, is close to a border, your character is very different to that white dot being, the other border. So a Machiavellian who's close to utilitarian is probably, more extreme about things that they would be able to do for their group or for the greater good, whereas a Machiavellian closer to nihilism is like basically doesn't care what they do, how it affects others, as long as they're getting what they want. So where you are within a quadrant is really significant as well.
As game director, I'm curious to know, where do you sit in the quadrant? What's your favorite kind of? What sort of person are you, Craig?
I've often found myself tending towards a utilitarian closer to the Machiavellian side, but the fact that there are, the moral tendencies that show all of the quadrants, a little bit of everything, like that's what being human is, So, yeah.
So if this was a look at the future of Australia, we could all kind of coexist in one big group, perhaps.
One big group full of knives and dingoes and drop bears and stuff, sure.
I do want to just quickly ask, I know that I think you mentioned to me before that the actual inspiration for that morality system had something to do with sort of like social media?
Sure,
which I found quite interesting.
Look, a portion of it was seeing how people speak to each other. Oh, by the way, you can hold down tab to highlight interactables, points of interest, and named characters, so to kind of shortcut spotting who you've got to speak to.
That is such a fantastic feature. I've just been watching a mate play through the Walking Dead Telltale series, and we were saying it'd be great if you could just hold a button down and see what you could engage with in the world. Love that quality of life.
Yes, it's a good quality of life thing that you've seen in similar RPGs recently that we had to have. So Zach, what inspired the moral compass was, I was also trying to come up with, hey, how can we do something interesting in a post-apocalyptic world where there will be a broad range of situations where contemporary morality or social norms or whatever really don't apply. You can't hold the same values in these, what are essentially scripted thought experiments created by a dungeon master that allow you to play them out in different ways. One of the things that was happening, still ongoing now, but this was about 5 years ago, just under 5 years ago when we started designing the system, was just seeing how absolutely polarized people are when they communicate to each other online. How you're with us or against us. You got a few elements of this thing, therefore you're all bad or you're all good. And it was such a reductive way of viewing other people. It was creating and continues to create further division between polarized extremes on the political spectrum, between the far left and the far right. That fed into part of the story behind the apocalypse in Broken Roads, was a civil war between the left and the right in the United States that then became global factions that were a new Axis and allies, essentially, and a third world war that led to the bombs that led to this apocalypse. So the moral compass was like, well, what if we don't let you be one of two things, or even on a sliding scale between two extremes, but we make everybody have to overlap. Everybody's comprised of more than one-dimensional, and literally one dimension on a spectrum between good and evil, light side, dark side, left wing, right wing, but make sure that it's a two-dimensional thing, which is displayed in the moral compass there, where, oh shit, now I have to actually think a little bit more, because that person who I've demonized and is literally Hitler because they didn't like my post is maybe a little bit more complex and's got a little bit more going on than the way I've reduced them to an avatar and a username that I can demonize and hate and whatever. So that's kind of the brief of it. It didn't just inspire the moral compass, but a major part of the what leads to the apocalypse as well.
One and also Nathan's just it was just on the screen before, but there's a little cool neat feature that, because obviously this is set in Australia and it features a lot of Australian slang, but not just Australian slang, I guess Indigenous language as well. And there's a feature in the game where you can actually hover over specific words or whatnot, and it actually gives you a non-Australian, non-Indigenous kind of translation. Yeah. So basically, it's like a glossary. You might get one in this conversation here. If you see a yellow word or light yellow word, just move the mouse over it. It's basically, we didn't want to hold back on Aussie lingo or slang or anything like that. So we had to include this feature. It's fun. It helps people understand what is the slang. We don't have to hold back when writing. And it's also just it's a cool, fun thing. Yeah, if you move your mouse over Jiffy or Sorted.
Here we go. Sorted. Are we serious? Is this slang? I'm taking this for granted.
You reckon? So
Jiffy,
so
I'll pay Jiffy. Absolutely.
When we were discussing a couple of weeks ago, Craig, I remember like one of the things I quite like the most is that to kind of enhance this feature or that lingo, you actually went out and bought like a little dictionary of Australian slang.
Well, I've only been here at this point 5 years. When we started working on Broken Roads, I think I'd been here around, here being Australia, about 2 years. So we've got a lot, 9, so it's more than 50% of the team are Australian. We've got a lot of artists around the rest of the world, but our narrative director, narrative designer, animator, level designer, audio lead and composer are all Australian. So they help with the, where I'm unable to say, hey, how would this be authentically Australian? But for the most part, what you're seeing is written by Australian writers. And I've gone and said, hey, you can't really assume this word. This, people in the States don't know this, or people in the UK don't know this.
Can I ask, sort of, as somebody who's come in with like an outsider perspective on Australian culture, like what was it about our vibe that kind of made you want to get so heavily involved in a game that is this like quintessentially Australian?
The love of beer, really. The frequency of. Oh no! Look, it's just the main thing was spotting that.
Belgium.
No, I said Belgium. Yeah. No, it was just it organically came out of originally being a nondescript kind of generic post-apoc world, and it was just cool. We're going to do a road trip across post-apoc place and have various encounters. And it was like, no, let's make this Australia. And then no, let's make it Western Australia. Cool. Let's really lean into, how do we distill the massive thing that is Australian culture into a few chunks that we can represent in a game. So it's like, okay, we're going to have this type of voice. We're going to have jokes. We're going to have levity. We're going to have seriousness. We're going to have that sort of just get on with it attitude at the same time as, people will make light of something. Doesn't mean that they're not taking it seriously. I think that's a kind of Aussie thing. You've always got time for give your friends shit, but they're still your mates. Like the better friends. Like, this is not only Australian, but it's definitely, I think, maybe shared between Commonwealth countries. I think there's some similarities off the bat with Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, for instance, where you give your friends more shit than anyone else gives them. You don't have the time to bother with people you don't like and that kind of thing. So you will see how there's a lot of banter between friends and family within the game as well. We handle some, very serious themes and don't shy away from making a few jokes along the way as well. So there's beer drinking, and there's sports, and there's football and cricket, all those little nods. And we hope we've peppered them in such a way that an international audience will just enjoy them, but never feel, what is this thing? I don't understand what they're doing.
You would imagine that shit talking is a universal language, But
you'd hope.
So these early stages, what's the what are we building towards? I guess.
Cool. So you're getting a familiarity with some of the core characters, the companions. Every origin story has its opening scene is like, here's a story that shows you how to use the inventory. Here's an objective that shows you what dialogue is. Basically narrative-driven tutorials. What we've done is you don't actually have to do anything other than a main quest. So Mad here is telling you to walk around the outskirts of the Belly Hall fence to check if there's anything that needs repairs. Dreamer or Mishti has asked you to do, hey, can you fill the tub? Can you do target practice with Jonesy, which essentially is tutorial combat? Can you fill the tub for the camels? Can you clear up some scrub, some bushes for them? You don't have to do that stuff. You can just go straight on to the main quest, and they'll say like, oh, so-and-so is going to be pissed off with you. And you're like, I don't care. I'm here to do something else. So you don't have to do the tutorial sections if you don't want to. You can just proceed ahead, and there you go. So it's just updated to return to Jake. And now if you do return to Jake, you'll see that Ella will say, you sure you don't want to do the rest? Like, you're going to be pissing people off. And you go, I don't care. Jake is up at the top working on the barrels. So there he is.
Old mate.
There's old mate.
I imagine that's probably born from a desire to, RPGs like this are something that get replayed over and over again by players, right?
Totally.
And so, and often a complaint we hear is that the intro drags after you've done it the first time.
100%.
It seems like you've kind of sidestepped that a bit.
Yeah, we didn't want to make them completely skippable. I mean, if you look at Baldur's Gate 2, they made a mod called Dungeon Be Gone to skip the opening of Arenika's dungeon because it was linear before the world opened up. So what we've got is you can really quickly get through the origin stories if you want to on a second play.
Cool.
Anyway, it's about time to head to Alderside, yeah? Should be safe and easy.
We can hear some voice acting kind of taking place now, but a large portion of the game is actually just sort of text-based, isn't it?
Yeah, so we haven't had the budget to narrate everything that the narrator says or record everything that NPCs say. We've tried to have every greeting, every goodbye, combat, grunts and barks and that kind of thing. All of the major story beats are narrated by Carla Hart, who is our narrator, and she's helped us with a lot of the Noongar writing in the game. Most of the characters that are of any significance have enough voiceover so that you can kind of get a feel for their personality or their tone or their vibe, so that later on, if you read something that isn't voiced, you kind of can hopefully imagine what their personality is like because you've heard enough general VO.
Cool. All right. Do we want to jump forward, or is there still more to?
I think we've just wrapped up the tutorial.
Yeah, so what you've done now is... Exactly, so you've completed the opening sequence for the Surveyor. Now you're going to go to the town of Alderside, and you'll have an encounter with a dying merchant that I don't... it's not part of the demo. So the sequence that's about to start, nobody will have played this yet. People who haven't been at Gamescom or PAX won't have seen this content either. the surveyor stuff that's about to load up, and then we can skip ahead later when you want to.
Cool.
Amazing.
Perfect.
I guess while we're on the topic of packs, actually, so obviously I think reception to this game, the more times you've shown it off, it seems like the more and more hype is building up around it, the positive buzz, right? I imagine that must feel kind of encouraging with, this has obviously been a few years in the making for you folks, right? This has been a project. So does it feel good to kind of like have that consistent positive feedback? Are you happy with how it's been received?
It's honestly been kind of incredible. We've had the cover of PC Gamer magazine. We've had our stuff picked up by PlayStation, Xbox to promote on their own channels. The Discord, I mean, I don't know, I'm guessing over 1,000 users now. I could be wrong.
Nice.
Like, there's a lot of buzz and attention. We have been marketing the game for almost 4 years. So while it's awesome, it also creates a lot to live up to. We know that there's still bugs. Somebody finds something that is, despite I don't know how many people, 20, 30 people testing it end to end, you get one player who's running a graphics card we've never tested and it doesn't work. So there's undoubtedly going to be things that go wrong, and that's kind of making us obviously nervous while also incredibly excited to get this out there and in people's hands and see what they say. So love the buzz. It definitely does make you more nervous when there's this many eyeballs on it. But the flip side of that is, hopefully more people buy it, the game's a success, and we can do something even better after Broken Roads.
Yeah.
Just to kind of touch on that, do you think or do you hope that with the success of, say, like Baldur's Gate 3, really putting this type of game, into the eyeballs of the public, that this will hopefully open up more people to playing a game like Broken Roads?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Baldur's Gate 3 and Disco Elysium have done so much for this genre. Disco Elysium because it brought some really new things, and it also showed there is a massive market for people who aren't interested in combat in their RPGs. They are willing to read for, I don't know, 20, 30 hours of a playthrough. This is before the Final Cut that had all the VO. And then Baldur's Gate 3 has just blown everything out the water, and just like what is possible in an RPG. They've got obviously the Dungeons & Dragons license and the rule set and stuff to build upon, but I think what they've done is phenomenal achievement. I haven't played it yet. I'm waiting until Broken Roads is out so I can really lose myself in Baldur's Gate 3.
Absolutely.
But totally, I think we just got really lucky with our timing, in the sense that we didn't know about Disco Elysium. I think Baldur's Gate 3 might have been announced, but I don't remember when it was announced, and it was still a long way off. And the popularity of this genre, now we've got other titles like the Warhammer Rogue Trader, Sovereign Syndicate, Colony Ship. There's so many both developers and players for this, that this kind of subgenre of RPG is really good for us that it's popular again.
It almost feels like a boon for like games for adults, for lack of a better term. Like, like you said, they're very text-based, it's very idea-heavy, and it has been really fascinating to see it kind of pop off, I think, the way that it has over the past few months. And yeah, great timing for you folks.
Yeah.
Awesome. So while we load back into the game, we're just going to give a quick shout out and hear from our sponsors.
SteelSeries is renowned for its innovative and award-winning products that elevate your gaming performance and experience, and the new range of Alias microphones are no exception. Alias microphones feature a capsule that is 3 times larger than most microphones on the market, giving your recording richer and deeper audio. And with the free-to-use Sonar software, AI-enhanced noise cancellation eliminates the background noise that other cardioid microphones will capture. With Sonar, SteelSeries has tailor-made an audio suite that offers the complete solution for content creators who want to manage their EQ levels, personal and stream mix, and it works seamlessly with programs such as OBS and many, many more. Available now, Alias Microphones and Sonar features everything you need to take your content creation to the next level.
All right, cool. Craig, we're now going to jump into a very exciting quest. This is the plane crash sequence of the game. Tell us why this is pretty cool.
Well, this is a section that happens after the origin stories end. So nobody has seen this stuff outside of a few little teaser screenshots and that kind of thing. This is when your convoy and your companions are making their way to one of the largest cities in the game. You're obviously incredibly surprised on your way there to see this plume of smoke erupt, and as you get closer, you find a downed plane. Now, obviously, planes have not flown since before the apocalypse happened. No one's seen one flying, and the smoke makes you, obviously give us the clues that this was very recent. So we don't know why. We don't know what the mystery is. And you have to decide, well, how long are we going to hang around here? Because if we saw that plume of smoke, others will as well.
Yeah, we can come back later.
Awesome.
But it's going to have been salvaged
Very
for
good.
parts by then.
So I noticed when I played through this section a bit earlier, the group dynamics, now that there's a full group, have become quite integral to letting new people in, how you're going to approach situations, all that kind of stuff. Is that kind of tribal leadership going to become sort of an ongoing point of tension, or how do you balance that with the player wanting to have more control over their group?
So as you start the game, depending on the origin story, like when you work for the hired guns, you're working for the scouts as a hired gun, you are actually working with their leadership. Different origin stories, the surveyor has been sent there from the Meriden Surveyors Guild, the border crews on their own. The Jackaroo has joined Sean and his father, John, who you can see there in the orange puffer jacket. So there are slightly different dynamics, but this is a game where the player has to end up running the show and being followed around by a party of people who, it's got to make sense. So you perform certain actions that get everyone's trust in you to increase. Mick, the mayor of Brookton in particular, kind of tasks you with things and you prove yourself to him. And as you meet more people, like for example, DJ here, he knows Jess and Sean through previous barter runs and that kind of thing. People will join and leave your party. Some companions will dislike others, but they won't leave the group or anything. You can make choices and one person likes them and another person doesn't, because each of your companions have a hidden location on the moral compass as well. That doesn't change, but for example, DJ probably won't like some of the more selfish or uncaring acts that you might do, while Mad and Ella might, Mad's like doesn't care, and Ella can see the sense in them even if some people are hurt. So you will get different companion reactions depending on it. And you will also see how your responses build and degrade trust in your companions. So some people, will have a really good relationship with you by the late game, and others won't. And you'll, different playthroughs, you will see different reactivity and different companion comments as well.
So I can see that the moral compass is now shifted because this is a different save. So what are we?
You've also just leveled up, by the way. Oh. So you can click on the exclamation mark on the second icon. There we go, character sheet. You can spend your attribute points and skill points. Sorry, Zach.
No, yeah. So what's our morality kind of pointing towards at the moment? Because it's in that yellowish.
Yeah.
I can't.
So this was a character that is close to, well, kind of like how I described myself actually, in the utilitarian, leaning towards the Machiavellian, but little bits and pieces in the rest of it. This person would be more interested in the greater good overall, but could justify violence if it gets the right outcome, or this person would be willing to lie to save lives. This person would not always put their own interests first. They would be a little bit more caring for the group and that kind of thing, but they're not fully ruthlessly, the ends justifies the means kind of Machiavellian. Not at all. You can view that if you click on the third icon, the moral compass tab next to just next to that. There we go. Okay, so cool. There you can see where you are located. You can see the different traits and so on that you have active.
How do they I didn't say, how do they actually work? So how do you get the moral traits?
So they are just auto. Okay. You can see if they're within your worldview or within your moral tendencies. They are auto activated. These are also, as with anything else that you are seeing on the stream right now, subject to change, subject to be removed, subject to be moved elsewhere, that kind of thing. We didn't want people to have more than 3 or 4 active at any one time, but there's clearly some locations on the moral compass where you can group, in this instance, 7. So I think what's happening is that what is the top left option, the active moral traits?
So better feared than loved.
Yeah. Better feared than loved, yeah. So that one should be a little bit further out, if that makes sense. Because you have it from default at the start. Anyway, these are activated automatically, if they're within your worldview or within your moral tendencies, they can provide unique dialogue options. Some of them give you combat bonuses. Others will, for example, some don't let you aim if your shot might come too close to companion. Others don't let you use area of effect attacks if it'll hurt your friendlies. Others can actually pull a nearby companion in front of you if someone's attacking and they take the shot instead. So it's just a range of things where the consequences of your choices also affect your player character's personality, unique dialogue options, and how they perform in combat.
And just very quickly, how do the skills and that, how do they, or the stats, sorry, how do they influence or impact your playthrough?
So there's attributes, each of which align to two of which align to each of the skill trees, which you can show when this dialogue moment is over. We can open the character sheet and I'll show you. Fortitude, temperance, and wisdom. So there, your strength and your agility create a total value of 14, which is the base for all of your fortitude. So you can see this character hasn't spent any points in melee mastery, but they can still use it. So our design approach was everything's available to everyone, even if you're really bad at it. And you can see the ranks at the top right. So maybe click on biology, because that's an example where you've hit the second rank. So at the top right of the skills, now move your mouse over the top right of the 1, 25, 50. So where it says level 28 at the very top right of the screen. And those different ranks each give you different advantages. So the individual integer, like let's say 14 in melee mastery, you can still do some stuff, but when you get to 25, you will get specific improvements and bonuses. Then when you reach 50 and you're at rank 3, you get more, and 75 and then 100. So each time you spend attribute points, you will increase everything that's below that in its relative skill tree. You can have passive attribute checks in dialogue or quest moments, and then you can also have individual skill checks too. So for example, biology, the higher your biology, the more effective you are with first aid. You can identify and get unique dialogue options because of your knowledge of medicine or your knowledge of anatomy or something like that. Shooting mastery is for ranged weapons. Drunken master is because we don't have magic potions, drugs, because of the ratings board. What we've got is beer is your magic potions. Beer gives you enhancements. Beer can heal you. Beer can increase your initiative, all those kinds of things. The better you are at Drunken Master, the less action points it requires to drink a beer, the less bad your hangovers are, those kinds of things.
I can see in the top left that Nathan's party is all there. Can we actually individually increase the skills of party members?
So no, the companions are on their own path. So they've got how they improve their attributes, their skills. Those are all kind of set. They follow particular archetypes. Their personalities are also completely set and written. So these are characters that are part of your journey, basically, and you are you're your own character telling your own story, and they have their own stories that sort of join and depart and whatever. So we've taken the Fallout approach where your companions kind of do their own thing,
Now, we've found some friends here.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about the wildlife in this game, because it wouldn't be Australia without them.
No, of course. So at the start of the game, you're in Brookton. That town has a place called Taylor's Farm, which has sheep and so on. Obviously, there's kangaroos, there's emus, all those kinds of things which you'd sort of expect in the world. I think that they'll try and run away for the most part, but I think that emu's kind of stuck up against the fence.
He just trusts us,
cornered him.
and then the further you go into the wasteland, the further from Brookton, you start to get some weirder and weirder creatures that I don't want to spoil right now, but the wildlife does get there. You startled him. The wildlife does get a little bit more interesting. Once you get into Meriden, you can find that they have caught a a mutated wombat that is in a little pen. You know, that's far from the strangest creature that you will encounter. So that little kangaroo, little wallaby over there will run as you approach as well, I think. Yeah, he doesn't like you.
Little mate.
There we go.
Are we going to have to be cautious of any animals? Like snakes, spiders are obviously a pretty big thing.
Snakes, not so much just yet. You will encounter some spiders later. You see some critters running around in the world, but they're generally just like escaping from you.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, you will be fighting not just human beings, but some particularly aggressive wildlife at times.
Excellent.
And it also plays into the Jackaroo origin story. You know, the Aussie cowboy has grown up around animals and is able to, you know, get more meat when you are looting, say, a kangaroo. You will be able to get more meat than the other character types because you're just better at filleting, essentially. So that meat can then be used for, you know, healing HP and that kind of thing. So each of your different origin stories has small little things. Glad you found this. This is one of our scripted interactions. These are, you know, full screen image takeovers that allow you to have sort of a choose your own adventure moment where you'll read the text, even hear moral choices, skills, passive ability checks, all those passive attribute checks, all of those things will play a role as well. So different builds will experience these scripted interactions in slightly different ways as well.
Let's search the cockpit.
Seems wise.
What'd you find? Was there a particular reason why you wanted these moments to be the still images? Or
It's just a fun style. Like sometimes for scope reasons, we don't. It's easier to have an artist create a static image that displays the scene, then create all the props and make a new interior and all those kinds of things. Other times we can just capture the moment better this way. It's also, some people just love these in, say, Pillars of Eternity, I think in Tyranny, I don't recall, Torment Tides of Numenera. They have these moments that, yeah, some people just love them.
It lends itself better to the genre, right? Like RPG is a lot about player investment, imagination, you know, putting yourself in that situation. And so something like this, you can fill in those blanks yourself nicely.
Absolutely. And we've got two types as well. What you're looking at now is called a scripted interaction. Then we have narrative illustrations that more sort of play out linearly with different logic. Those are the full colored ones that you don't have player input. But what you may not know is what you are seeing is actually influenced by your choices and stuff prior. So if you want to explore the area around the plane, you're going to have to go just a bit north of it. Mm-hmm. And again, hold down Tab to mark those interactables. And you'll find that there were some tire tracks that you saw earlier, but I don't think you interacted with them. So that's just north, east of where you are now.
Here we go.
Those are some pretty obvious tire tracks you missed,
Indeed,
Nathan, but that's okay.
Sorry, I think we all missed them, didn't we, James?
We probably did.
Let's take a closer look.
Yeah. Cool. So once you've done that, there was a building at the kind of towards the south edge of the map, which will help you complete
That's
the
where I was
final.
heading.
I'm curious to know,
complete the last of
is
these objectives.
there like a day-night cycle? Like, will there be scenes that you play at night?
Yes, so there's up until a particular point in the game, it's sort of playing out a linear story, which includes this scene at this time of day. But then once the world opens up, it's pretty much all. I think you've already investigated that one.
Oh, yeah.
It's just down to the guy at the bottom. Most of the scenes have day and night, and there's night lighting, day lighting. There is a time, a clock that's happening in the background, but it's disabled up until a certain point. And then the game, like when you come back here after the world's opened up, you can see this at day or night. Many of the interiors, the lighting is subtly different if it's day or night. There are some things that can only be done during the day and some things that can only be done during the night, but for the most part, we try and make it pretty obvious.
Cool. In terms of how big, I'm curious to know how big locations, or at least maybe this one, seem quite compact. Is that kind of a general thing?
It's dependent on the scene. We tried not to make them any larger than they needed to, and we've tried to have a consistent amount of content density. So we don't want you running around too far without seeing something interesting, somebody to talk to, a tree stump to find some scrap in, those kinds of things. We want there to be something that you can do. This plane crash really is all about meeting Ruben, which you've just done, investigating the plane crash, talking to Mick about it, and then proceeding. And then you'll get to Meriden, which is one of the largest maps in the game. It's sort of the central hub city, which is, I can't remember, it's 3 or 4 times the size of this map. The town of Brookton is also kind of large. And then, some of the later game areas are considerably larger than this plane crash here. But
Cool.
we didn't want to just make them large and have the player running through them. That's, just not fun.
I just wanted to wait a little bit longer from the start of the game, from what we're playing, to ask this question, but it's very distinctly Australian outback. I guess how did you manage to kind of get that authenticity into the game?
Cool. Well, we took a bunch of trips to all these locations. We've driven from Brookton to Meriden, from Kalgoorlie to Wave Rock, so a whole bunch of places north and south of the main highway in the wheat belt, and taken at this point literally thousands of photos, audio recordings. We've had the international art team, people that weren't able to go to WA. We've sent them pictures, we've sent them references where we could find, say, drone videos on YouTube. We've sent them. We've said, like, hey, check the color of the dirt in this location. Hey, can you make the dust more red? Hey, this place is farmland. It's more brown green than that red. We've tried to make it as recognizable and as authentic. All of the locations, the landmarks, right, like literally down to the color of the bark on the trees for the gum trees, the color of dirt in that location. There is some exceptions made in the big cities where we don't want the character to have to run for 15 minutes, so that's geographically accurate. So we've moved some of those landmarks obviously a lot closer. The main consideration is player experience and fun. But for the most part, where we have recreated something, it's as authentic as possible. And we had some Western Australians playing it at PAX that were just like, oh, I recognize that tower from Meriden anywhere. Or like, wow, you've really captured Wave Rock. Those kinds of things. Tim, our audio lead and composer, recorded the sound of birds, the sound of wind going through trees, all those kinds of things. When you're in Wave Rock and you're hearing the ambience or the sound effects, that's literally recorded at Wave Rock in WA.
That's a nice touch.
Cool. I guess a very important part of this game, and Australian culture, is the Indigenous people, and you have done a lot of work with them to get their input and their correct representation in the game.
Yeah, so look, it was obviously not something I could do myself when I started off. Like I mentioned earlier, only been here a couple of years. No chance of being able to hope to. So we've worked with a range of writers and educators and tour guides, consultants, other people in games, some people who are in different media but can weigh in or lend a hand, do voice recordings and so on. And yeah, it was just an essential part of this process was to be able to do respectful and authentic representation and not try and do any of that stuff ourselves. Like, I learned so much about the lack of, there's one Aboriginal culture, or there's this group or whatever, but there's so many language groups, so much country, so much difference and distinctions. Even in our game is a particular area of Noongar country and so on. So yeah, we've had great help from Carla Hart. We've had other people from the area, like take me to a specific place and show me some photos and show me some things, allow me to take some photos. Had a smoking ceremony and just really, really awesome stuff, which was very rewarding to do. Very happy with the outcome. We've had every image, every location that covers Indigenous characters and so on, their artwork, their portraits, the environment, the scenes, all of that stuff has been assessed and looked at and read, or often written by an appropriate person, or consulted an elder where appropriate. It's just something that you have to do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's really fantastic to hear.
Yeah.
I just
Cool.
sort of ask
Thanks.
is,
Look,
so in what Nathan's playing, I think he's got Ruben, who's the character that we've found down by the shed there. He's now joined our party.
He's joined the convoy, actually. Yeah, he's trying to join the
convoy
convoy to get a free ride to Meriden. So your party is your companions at the bottom left, and there's convoy characters such as Mick, Ruben, Sarah, the rest of them that they don't join your party, but they can travel with you, or they can hop on and then disappear again.
Are these the four companions? Are they set throughout the game, or do we meet some later on throughout the game that you can actually add as companions?
So you do meet others. You've already met Jess and Sean, actually, that are there. You can see Jess with a hat on. Sean was up at the plane crash earlier. Sean joins you if you start as a Jackaroo. When you get to Meriden, you then have kind of solo control. There you can see DJ has just left the party because he's only going to be with you for a while. When you get to Meriden, where you are now, you get inside the gates, and then you have solo control. And then when you leave, you have to choose which four people are going to be coming with you, for a total of 5 in your party.
And the only way, for one of those characters to die, you have to die, which then means the whole party companions are all gone, which you just restart again.
Yeah, exactly. So the only death is when everyone dies in combat, or a few narrative moments. So we didn't want this to be a punishing heavy combat game. If somebody gets downed in combat but one person survives, they're revived with 1 hit point. And we also designed different statuses based upon how injured you are. So a character with full health is obviously super effective, and a character with like 50% health, or 1 hit point is really weak. They have penalties to action points, penalties to movement points, all those kinds of things. So you can't ignore the health, but we're also not like, okay, well, he's dead.
So what's Nathan playing through at the moment?
So right now you've just arrived at, you can scroll up on the mouse to zoom in a little bit. That's the mayor, or at least the governor, I should say, of Meriden. They are a pretty well-established city. It's built a very solid wall around it. Like, the walls of Meriden are kind of legendary in the wasteland. Nobody can get through, nobody can break in, and what you have is everyone is trying to get in there. So they've created a bit of a refugee area. They're called the Othersiders because they're on the other side of the wall. And if you have money, if you have skills, if you've got something to trade, hey, no problem, you're allowed in. If you look like you're just going to be a weight on the society and a drain, sorry, you're outside the gates. So right now you are trying to convince them to let you in. And Mr. McCabe over here from Westonia has been waiting his turn, and he's obviously a bit pissed off that you're trying to jump the queue.
That's a very utilitarian kind of approach to the apocalypse, right? Like, are we going to find other settlements that have a bit more of a humanitarian approach and a bit more softer edge to them?
Sometimes, but what you'll see is, again, they're kind of a mix. Yes, there is some place that's meant to embody a humanist worldview. There's others where you might get a disagreement in leadership because one person thinks we should be doing this, and the other person is, well, while that sounds noble, it's going to be the end of this community. So that kind of stuff does play out. There's obvious overlaps between morality and law and politics and so on. We've leaned into sort of the philosophically moral side of things, and yes, they touch on personality, motivations, politics, social structure, modes of government, all those kinds of things relate to this, but we haven't tried to capture. A lot of people say, oh, this looks like a political compass. Yep, there is a similarity there in terms of how they look with the quadrants and so on, but we haven't leaned that much. It's definitely philosophical more so than political.
Yeah, understood. Is there any sort of romance options in the game? Is that going to be a thing?
There are. It's light. You know,
Yeah.
we don't have full romance. That they become a partner and it kind of has a major impact. But we didn't want to have nothing either. You know, I'm not myself particularly a fan of romances. I don't really go into them when I'm playing the RPGs. I'll find something else. Sometimes it's unavoidable, like the Mass Effect games, and you just go there.
Yeah.
We definitely don't have anything close to the stuff that's been going viral about Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
Getting under the sheets.
But no, you can. There definitely are love in all its forms in its many forms available in Broken Roads, but it's not central to it. You know, we've got a limited word count, we've got a limited number of things we can do, and what we've put in the game, we want it to be very satisfactory. You know, maybe the game blows up and we get a lot more budget, and if we do our director's or final cut or full, you know, jumbo meat pie version, whatever we end up calling the final cut of the game, sure, maybe we'll have more romances and that kind of thing.
I imagine that's something you have to be kind of aware of, though, with budget limitations and like feature creep. And, you know, like, yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is a fantastic boon for the industry, but it's also such a mammoth kind of project that to compare yourself to that probably can't be a healthy place to develop from, you know?
Totally. Look, I mean, it's we don't, others do. We know what we were trying to do, what we were trying to achieve, and it's to make a fun Australian narrative-driven role-playing game that's, hey, this moral compass thing's pretty interesting in these authentic Australian locations. That's pretty cool. That's what we're going for. People seem to love it. We've not trying to directly compete, even though there's obvious audience overlap with Baldur's Gate 3. Hey, you know, they've got a massive budget, massive team, decades of experience as Larian, you know. So that's cool. Some people have had some very strange things to say about Baldur's Gate is like so good that it's made it hard for others. I don't quite follow that. It's just like people work hard and dedicate themselves and they produce an amazing product, like good for them. We definitely not, you know, it would be foolish to go, well, I'm making a little first person shooter. I'm going to try and compete with Call of Duty. Like, no, we've got our niche and we've got our audience, and I think there's a lot of people who might be into this because they like Disco Elysium, and you can play through this game in multiple pacifist ways. Like, you don't actually have to kill anyone to get through
that's cool.
Broken Roads. Like, the combat is optional. Whereas Baldur's Gate, I don't think that's a thing. I think that it is.
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So, you know, we've got people that might just like the balance we've struck. Traditional CRPG players, a little bit of combat, lots of talking, exploration, that kind of thing, character development. And then you get others who are like, well, I love the point-and-click adventure bit with the role-playing elements of Disco Elysium. I'm not interested in combat. They can have fun with Broken Roads as well, because there is multiple solutions that don't require... Like, you can get into combat and you can flee, and then the story plays out because you ran away from the combat. Like, fleeing is not always defeat in Broken Roads, and you know,
it's
that's
like an organic next step in your story.
Exactly,
right?
and characters might react. You know, let's say there's one battle where John and Sean are helping you out, and you run away. They win the battle canonically. That's how the story plays out, and then they give you shit about it. You know, so you've just arrived in Meriden. John doesn't really have anything to sell yet. You know, but yeah, now you're inside the city. Actually, if you push M, you can see the mini map. So you've got quite a bit to explore, and you can see that's the area that you arrived at outside the gates, and now you've just set up with the convoy inside Meriden as well. So this is one of the larger areas in the game, and if you kind of run around in the scene, you'll see there's a marketplace, there's a governor's governor's HQ, there's hunters and collectors, which is like the mercenary guild and the surveyors guild, where hired gun and surveyor characters can get some unique content, that kind of thing. So yeah, and you can also see the question you were asking earlier, is there a day-night cycle? Now that you're in Meriden, the clock is kind of loosely just flowing, and it's 5:36 in the morning.
I just want to ask about the art style. You kind of mentioned that the earlier briefs I guess, was to have it like stylish concept art or something to that effect.
Yeah, the goal was the brief, highest level brief was wanted to feel like you're playing in concept art. We didn't want to go ultra realistic. We wanted to have a unique style. We wanted the big brush strokes. We wanted you can paint over the edges if you want, you don't have to stick within the lines. This is true of the environments, the character portraits, the textures on the different models, and so on. So look, I think that the team have done an absolutely fantastic job. You can see when you zoomed in and so on that the quality of the art, there we go, is it's come along so far. I can actually see an old character there at the top left, so you can see the difference in quality. She's meant to be swapped out. You can see the difference in quality between the newer textures, like the guy on stage and your player character, and the one that just walked on now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you've done an amazing job just capturing all like the detail in that style. I think there's like, if you look at that scene we're looking at, just with the lights on that wooden sort of backdrop there, and like the carpet or the rug.
Totally.
There's like a ton of detail. So I think it looks, it all still looks and feels kind of distinctly Australian. So I think you've
It's like
thank you.
appropriately evocative, right? Like I've spent a fair bit of time sort of in the very middle of Australia, like the heartland of it, basically. And that kind of like dry, textured feel, like you do get that from this expressionist style that you've decided to go with here. So I think it's really good.
Awesome. Now I'll pass that on to the art team. Thanks very much.
All right. So
Cool.
Nathan? So from here, where would Nathan, or where would the gameplay take you as we?
So if you open the journal, push J, and then you click on main quests at the top left, you should see the new idol, and that's basically saying meet Mick at the governor's headquarters. So what you have to do is kind of start to figure out, where is this place that I've arrived? What's the happenings? Are we going to get set up here? And what is Mick trying to do with the governor? They've let us in. What are the restrictions? What do we, so it's a little bit north, and that's actually the pub up there.
I think we go here, don't we? Sure,
What
so
can we do? What can't we do?
Go for a
That
froth.
kind of thing. So this is where the game sort of is really opening up now. You still, I don't want to say stuck within Meriden, but you've got to get yourself established so that you can come and go freely through those gates. That they're like, okay, cool, this person is good to come in or not.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Very
Sweet.
nice.
Well,
Cool.
I think we'll wrap it up there. Craig,
Nice.
thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. This has been lots of fun and really cool to see somebody playing it for the first time. The kind of questions that come up. That's it's great.
Nathan, what did you? What was your first thoughts, first impressions?
There's a lot of dialogue here to sink my teeth into. That's not a
There
criticism,
is.
that is a highlight. There is a lot of meat on the bone here in terms of the writing, so that's what I'm looking forward to, sinking my teeth into. And playing with the morality, like really seeing where that takes us in terms of the dialogue options and how those...
And the reactivity later.
Exactly.
I think you'll be quite surprised when 3 or 4 of you play the game and you reach a point where, I remember when this person did this, and you're like, what? I didn't have that at all. They did this. Oh no, I killed them 6 hours ago. So there's a lot of reactivity and a lot of difference depending on early choices.
Amazing.
Very good.
Well, good luck, and thank you once again. Pass on our thanks to all the team there. We're very excited for the game to come out next year on Xbox consoles and PC via Steam and GOG, with other consoles getting the game at a later date.
Awesome. Thanks very much, guys.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Cool.